All right, so doing a Wednesday stream, doing a bit early, just because Portugal's playing at one, like I said, and I want to make sure I can watch it because Ronaldo's on the big stage, and I'm not sure anyone watched the Argentina game last night. That was absolutely insane. Messi had the hat trick. I think that's his first hat trick ever in World Cup play, and he's tied up. What's up, Vidal? He's tied. There's a German player. I think is it Victor Close? I remember him as a kid, but I think the record right now they're tied at 16 goals apiece. So and Messi's only played the first game, so it's like he's got two more games. I mean, we definitely we know they're moving to the next round. So he's got at least three more games to just get one goal and break the record. Yeah, Messi is 100% the GOAT. 100%. Like, there's no question about it, man. I mean, he put all that to bed yesterday. That was nuts. Everybody's just like speechless. You know what I mean? It's crazy too because my cousin, my wife's cousin, is married to a girl from Argentina. So she's been wearing the jersey the whole day and a whole thing, and it's pretty cool to see. So they're very much into the club, to the team, and all that kind of stuff, and Messi, of course. So, all right. Anyways, enough of the football talk. Let's get into the trading talk. So today, here's the plan. We're gonna look at some. I mean, I'll set some levels for the tape read for NQ. It is lunchtime though, so not favorable, but nonetheless, we'll still do it. We're going to walk through some higher time frame analysis and the narrative and kind of my perspective of how I saw things this morning. And then we're going to discuss how I planned this whole trade today and the things I saw while price was moving. We'll talk about that. I'll show you the setup I did and the rationale behind it. And then we'll end with some mindset stuff from Best Loser Wins. So just to get started, whenever we whenever we show up to the charts, the very first thing we got to do is we always got to look at what do we got to look at when we show up to trade in the morning. That's the first thing you should do. Or maybe I should ask, what is the first thing you do? And then you can compare notes with me. Economic calendar, yeah, 100%. That's exactly what I do. The very first thing I do is I look up the calendar, right? So this morning, this is what we got. We got all of this, and this thing right here, 9:30 a.m. President Trump speaks. We saw this yesterday because we could obviously see into the future with what's planned. But I noticed it was on there, and I thought that's crazy because when I went to financial juice was showing that he was talking at like 8:30 in the morning, or maybe even earlier than that. So I wonder if the time just got mixed up, or maybe I don't even know what happened there. So a lot of people were a little bit, I think, reluctant to trade, right? Because no one wants to trade when Trump speaks, right? Ash, what's up, man? How we doing? Nice to see you. Hope the nursery's coming along well. So when we see Trump speaking, it's a flag, right? Because anything he says can move the market up or down. And also, to pile onto this, we got FOMC at 2. So two huge things happening. But once again, I kept looking to see if he was speaking, and he wasn't speaking. So I even asked in the chat, is like, hey, is Trump speaking today? And I think someone had hit me back and said, no, only the French president speaking. So when I heard that, kind of got some confirmations, looked at other discords to see if maybe I'm missing something. But he wasn't speaking. So that's a huge relief for me because I could kind of start to look for trades now and not have that uncertainty, right? That he might say something that'll screw everything up, especially if it's planned, right? We don't want to be trading when he's planned. So anyways, enough of that. opened the floor for us to trade. What did I do next? Well, like I said, I look at the higher time frame context. That's the next thing we'll talk about. So when I showed up for the higher time frame, if you go to my higher time frame bias thread, I post basically my bias for NQ, GC, and CL. I use the H4 to determine this bias, focusing on external range liquidity to internal range liquidity, or vice versa, and try to play off that. Basically, everything Ash, trade or teaches, I should say, it's like the foundation, right? Prior to joining or finding Matt, I had no idea even about this concept, and it takes time to kind of understand and perfect it. But the more you show up to the charts and study, the more your eyes start to almost like remember the things that you've seen in the past, and you build that muscle memory, and that of course brings up things about intuition and trading IQ. So I always post that higher time frame context. Now, this is what I had in the morning. Okay, I saw that price had swept into a H4 SIBI, and I know the NWOG's down here. We have an H4 sell side liquidity right here. Of course, we have H4 sell. I mislabeled this. This should say buy side liquidity up here, but I didn't know how price was going to respond off this daily EQ, because you can see it's holding support there, right? I'll just zoom in a little bit. You can see it's holding that support, and if you look at the clock, it's 8:34 in the morning. So I don't know if price is going to, catch a bid from here and move up higher. I often talk about the EQ of these ranges being very, very important. So I didn't know if price was going to sweep higher, and then I thought maybe a rejection, and then we'd go lower to fit that bias of internal to external. For external to be met, though, all I need to see is this H4 sell side get swept, and then the bias objective is complete. The other side was thinking maybe it doesn't sweep up higher, which is sweeping London high, and it just dumps. And then we maybe even get a bigger dump, because we have this NWOG that's just sitting here unmitigated, and it's pretty big. And then, of course, we have another H4 sell side liquidity down here. So I don't know, obviously, what price is going to do. All we can do is put ourselves on the right side of the probability, which is using these types of ICT concepts to figure out what's going to happen next. And then just let price do what it's going to do. Now, this is just the higher time frame context. So if I go back to, let's go to MNQ. I'll go to the H4. Let's just take a quick peek at what happened. So this is, it's basically the same thing. So Matt says, flat bottoms on today's daily candle, on that Monday daily candle, resting right above the NWOG. Yeah, this is like a sucker for price action for sure. And then, of course, you have this candlestick right here, the 6 to 10 candle closing kind of similar to what you're talking about, that flat bottom. So if we look at what happened, though, we actually never got that sweep higher, which was one of the possibilities I was thinking, and we actually just got that move lower. But what's really crazy is they front run sweeping the low here. Now, this low is actually the previous daily low. And I had just mentioned it. I had stepped away from my computer, and then I came back, and I noticed they front runned it at 10:45, which is hilarious, because today it seemed like there was a lot of front running happening. So nonetheless, the objective hasn't been met, but the move down happened, which was interesting. Okay, so if we go to the 15-minute, and let's just say we stick with the bearish idea, right? Internal to external. Market opens here 9:30. Next candlestick at 9:45. We get a sweep, right? We get a sweep right here of liquidity from the buy side, liquidity side, and it looks like there's also a. It looks like there's an FVG here, SIBI. And the next thing we can do is align that 1 minute. Now, of course, I got the IVG indicator up here, but I just want to show you what I'm talking about here. So, as if we're trying to look for like unicorns, or if you're using multi-time frame analysis, then you might want to start to align things in this way, right? Where we're going from H4 to 15-minute to 1 minute. So here's that 50-minute sweep, and then you can see price cascading. Okay, so knowing that this was happening, and knowing that I already had a bearish bias in the morning, and then the 50 minutes swept, I wasn't surprised to see the dump. My goal ultimately was to take that trade off of Asia low because it's just such an obvious level that was down there. And I didn't like all the stuff that was happening in the middle. So let's talk about what was happening in the middle, because there were setups happening. There were setups happening here. And I was like very, very tempted to take these positions. And I'll explain to you why. Okay, so when the market opens here, one of my key plays is taking trades off the daily EQ. So as price spikes into the daily EQ, this is exactly what I want to see. And I had identified this level right here, okay, as a valid IFVG potential. Okay, we got 10 points here, so it's the right size. The thing what I was looking for was like a V shape. I want to see a bounce like this, right? And of course I want to see that IFVG confirm, and the candle closure as close to the daily EQ as possible. But as price starts to dip lower, and then we start to see price close below the daily EQ, I start to get a little bit, more cautious, because that's not the kind of reaction I want to see. Even though price could still reverse from there, it's just like like a flag comes up. Now, if I go to the ES chart, because ES plays a huge role in how we view the price action on NQ, I just want to show you what I mean. Let me hit replay. Let's go back to, let's go right about here. What's up, beef? Hopefully you don't got beef with me. So right here is what we're talking about, okay? This section right here. Let me turn on the tool here. Okay, so we're looking at this section right here. So price is moving lower below the daily EQ. And I'd mentioned this in my chat. No problem, beef. I'm glad that you could make it, because I know sometimes people can't make it due to the time. So I thought it was fitting. And I'm trying to I don't want to rush things, but I'm just going to try to move at a bit of a faster pace. So right here, NQ is moving into the daily EQ, but at the same time, I just want you to be aware, ES is already below the daily EQ. Okay, so can anyone tell me, if you know how I trade, does anyone know why that's a problem? And if you don't know the answer to this, that's fine. But if you do know the answer, feel free to drop it in the chat. Okay, reaction. Any other reason to be cautious, seeing that ES is down here while NQ is tagging the daily EQ? Just out of curiosity. So the big reason to be cautious in this situation, even if NQ were to sweep up higher, is that if ES were to bounce from here and move to the daily EQ, we all know the daily EQ is a huge support and resistance type of level, which means that a reversal or some sort of rejection can occur at this place, which would then literally destroy the long idea on NQ. Okay, so that's flag 1 for that. Now, as price starts to then turn the corner, ES front runs sweeping the sell side liquidity level. So this is what I was saying earlier, right? There's been a lot of front runs happening. Now, when the front run happens here, NQ is now below the daily EQ. Okay, so let's focus on this. Seeing that ES is actually lower is actually a good thing. I often talk about how we want to see space between price action and the daily EQ when we set up longs or shorts, because we want to give price action room to breathe. We don't want ES to be trading too close to the daily EQ when we're going long or short on NQ, because if ES rejects or finds support off the daily EQ, that can destroy, once again, any type of trade that you're taking on NQ. And of course, vice versa. So seeing that NQ is sweeping the daily EQ and ES is actually just front running the hourly sell side liquidity level, and there's a good enough space here, which means it can still move higher, another trade sets up here. Okay, so let's talk about this trade right here, this idea. Okay, I'm just going to go back to MNQ because we're talking about this. Now, when it comes to the daily EQ, I have a rule for myself that I don't want to be trading into the daily EQ, because once again, it's a huge support and resistance level. If you look to the left, you can see how it's played a very key role in support and resistance based off where price is, right? You can see all this here. So even though a setup happens here, what's up, Alice? The fact that it's confirming right under the daily EQ, this is a scenario where even though the setup as a pattern looks amazing, okay, and we are technically using the daily EQ to take the trade off of, I just don't like how close it closes to the daily EQ, okay? If the IFVG had set up here and there was a good enough distance with ES from the daily EQ on that underside, this would have been more favorable, right? Seeing a bounce like that, because it's pure support. But seeing that price bounced and is now kind of chopping like this, I wasn't interested in this trade. Okay, now, important thing to note, just because you're not interested in a trade and just because you're sticking to your rules of not taking that trade, it doesn't mean the trade's like not going to work out. You as a trader have to be comfortable in seeing stuff like this play out and still maintaining composure, still maintaining patience and discipline and sticking to your rules. Because one of the rules, like I said, is to not take this type of a trade, because in the past I have been burnt many times. So even though it works here and this moved a nice healthy amount of points, let's say this is your position, 43.75 points, this thing moved up almost 100 points. I mean, this is a win, right? But I was sidelined on this trade. And once again, I've been burnt taking trades like this with the daily EQ. So even though it worked here this one time, the next 5 times this happens, it can all be losses. And this is part of the FOMO that we get as traders, is that we stick to our rules and then we watch price play out and we think, why did I stick to my rules? I should have just, followed my gut instinct, right? We use that type of terminology. And the problem with that is your gut instinct is driven through emotion, not through logic in this situation, right? The logic is me saying, hey, over the course of 10 trades, I've seen trades like this fail more than 50% of the time, which means logically and statistically, I should just keep my hands off of this, right? But if I stick with that notion in my head of, because we all have that in the back of our mind, right? We all have that voice telling us to, take that trade. It looks too good to be true, right? And then we kind of convince ourselves. Now, once again, looking at ES, let me just zoom in here for a sec. So this was the setup right here, right? Right here. And then if we look at ES, this is where ES was. Right here. So ES actually set up a play too, but it front run the sweep. I personally don't trade ES. And once again, my concern is that daily EQ underside. Like, there's no telling what and how price is going to react off of that. And seeing that this is so close here, to me, I just thought, you know what? I'm going to stick to my logic. I'm going to stick to the data, which has told me that this is a bad idea to take a trade here. And like I said in my channel, I said we have London high right here, and we have Asia low down here, and it's not too far off from where price is, whether it's going in one direction or the other. It's a much cleaner take to see the sweep and play off the reversal than it is to take this risky trade off the daily EQ. Okay, and I mentioned this in my thread or channel. Let me go back here just so you can see. I post everything I'm thinking in real time in this thread. I'm showing you that it's uncorrelated, which we just talked about, right? I was talking about how it's uncorrelated. Here's me showing you that trade setup idea and why I didn't like it, right? Yes, position with the DEQ makes me feel cautious. Would be much easier to see a clean sweep from a fresh sell side liquidity level below. That's what I just said right now, right? Too close to the daily EQ. And just because, like I said, I stay out doesn't mean price isn't going to work and do what it's going to do. And it did work. It worked perfectly, okay? They both also front run hourly sell side liquidity levels, which is pretty funny too. Let's keep moving forward. So let me close that off. So I basically watched that happen and play out, and I thought, okay, well, I missed out on a trade there. It is what it is. What are you going to do, right? There's nothing you can do about it. So then I thought, okay, well, look, we're right here. Maybe we're going to get that sweep. All it says I was about to take ES on this one was way below, but I didn't because of NQ. And, also the thing to talk about is like, there's always another trade. There's always another trade. If you just stick to your system, and as I did with mine, sometimes your patience can get rewarded. Yesterday, my patience got rewarded. I just waited all day, and then we kept taking trades and kept following rules, kept taking break evens, and finally caught a winning trade. And then I actually caught another trade during the PM session because it was just too clean. So today it's like carry over those facts, carry over that knowledge, and just have the belief in the system that you're trading and allow the price to then fulfill that belief. Okay, so it's not about hope at this point. I talked about this yesterday. It's about this obsession, right? Be obsessed with your system. Be obsessed with your rules, right? So as we watch price now do this, you can see it's just chopping around, right? Now, earlier in the session, I said there was a 50-minute level sweep here, right? And I also said on the H4, we were from an internal range liquidity, SIBI, wanting to see price move lower, which would tag at the PDL, fulfilling that objective of the H4 bias, which is bearish. Now price spikes into the Asia low right here, okay? So now we have Asia low being hit. If we go back to my thread, I said it right here at 9:58, Asia low would be most ideal to long from, or the PDL, okay? And at that time, there was nothing really to work with, okay? This is what it looked like. So if price was going to like do some sort of V-shaped recovery off this H1 level, I'm literally going to keep my hands like behind my back and not touch anything and not force myself into a trade. Another thing I didn't like about this H1 sweep was that we have a series of candles here. And does anyone know what we call that? When we see a setup like an IFEG, but the FEGs are stacked. This is called a non-singular setup. This is something we don't want to see as IFEG traders. We don't want to see imbalances stacked against us if we were to take that long. We want to see more of that LRLR type formation, right? Swing points, because then price has something to really reach for, and we can really calculate that distance and set up the trade applicably. So being patient and waiting for that sweep to happen is what paid off here, okay? Because Asia low gets tagged at 10:02. At 10:08, which is 6 minutes later, maybe a little bit earlier than that, I learned from yesterday. Yesterday I talked about how Asia low got swept. There was nothing there on the 1 minute. And I talked about how another trader was using the 30-second, and I had just referred back to see if they took that trade, and they did. And it was off the 30-second, and it was a very clean IFEG. And I knew it was going to be clean because whenever you get chopped like this and no real setup, I'm quite positive that there's going to be a 30-second play there. Okay. Now I don't typically like to take trades on the 30-second. I'll be honest with you, but when I see this playing out at London low or Asia low, excuse me, I'm gonna definitely keep an eye on that 30-second chart. And I was on Trade-Evate, and I'll just show you. So this is what the setup looked like on the 1 minute time frame. My entry was pretty bad. I'm not gonna lie. But even my execution, I could have been better, but the idea of the play was perfect. So on the right here, this is the Trade-Evate screenshot I took just so you can see. So right here on this candlestick is the sweep of Asia, okay? There's the FEG that gets flipped into an IFEG. Now, the problem for me was that if you look very closely right here, excuse me, let me just put this back. This candlestick right here actually closes above, or maybe actually, no, I don't think it did. It just missed closing above the FEG to confirm the IFEG. So I was watching the 30-second time frame on this chart, and then the next candlestick closed very aggressively. Now, as you guys know, I always front run entries before the candle closes on the 1 minute time frame if I feel that the momentum is strong, right? So in this situation, because there's only 30 seconds, it ended up closing, and I thought this thing was just going to fly. So I, of course, just hit like market order, and my market order, just like I talked about yesterday, it filled me way up here. Go figure. And you can see price actually dip right back into the FEG or the IFEG range, and this would have been a way better entry, right? So I had a pretty bad entry here, and if I had gotten an entry closer to the FEG, then I would have been able to take that TP right in this area, right? So all this is saying, you took it even though it's non-singular. The thing for me was I was setting the trade up on the 1 minute time frame, and I think that's something to be mindful of. Is for me, the setup was on the 1 minute time frame, and my goal was to exit at the daily EQ. Okay, that was my goal on this trade, was to exit where the daily EQ was or close to it. So you can see how it pumps there, right? Now, there's a couple of imbalances right here. And we can say, hey, this is a non-singular setup. And there's no IFEG on the 1 minute, sure. But when I look back at this setup here, my goal was to just see a quick move up and take the TP very quickly. Okay, can I predict that that's going to happen for sure? Do I have a crystal ball? No, of course not. So seeing that price started to chop here, I thought this was going to hit stop loss, right? And I was going to get burnt, and I was going to have to journal about it and learn something from the trade. But it didn't. So my entry sucked. It is inside of this FEG. And then, of course, price starts to move higher, and then we get the TP, right? And there's a lot of chop happening here. Is it the best trade? No. But this is part of trading, right? Is you got to bend rules sometimes. And you can't be extremely robotic because you got to be fluid with how the market's moving. Okay? I can't predict anything. All I can do is set those levels, wait for them to get tagged, and then start observing the strength of the candlesticks. Matt always talks about observing strength of candlesticks, right? These things tell us so much. When you look at these three candlesticks, this is exactly what you want to see, if not, one singular candle right here confirming that IFEG. But this looked amazing, right? If you take all of this chop away, this looks like it could go straight up and start taking out this liquidity here, and that would have been a good setup. I didn't know all this chop is going to happen. And if you look to the left, I guess it kind of makes sense because you do have these FEGs stacked up, and you can see how each time it gets hit, price kind of reacts to it, right? But this is a trader's intuition. Like, you got to move with that intuition. And as I was looking at the 1 minute time frame, and I was using these bands, I'm not sure if you guys know of Bourbon. I've known this guy for a long time. Met him on the UU side. I've always kept in touch with him, and he actually, I managed to talk to him to start posting in the Gen chat, but he uses a lot of these bands, and I've always been a student of the game. I love to learn, especially if I see things that I've never seen before. Like, I want to study it a bit more. So I started studying the bands, and I really, really started to appreciate it because those bands on the extremes start to actually work with the key levels that I'm using, such as London High and Asia Low. So seeing that we had swept, or just about swept, the lower band here, and we start to see that type of recovery, for me, my hunch was, if a reversal is going to take place, this is the best place, given the way price has been trading, for it to take, like, where it should take place from. Okay, if it fails, it fails. There's nothing you can do about that. But the probability of it happening from here is very high. And the other thing that Bourbon uses is these displacement candlesticks. He uses it. If you go back through his charts, you'll see it. So I'm not doing this to call him out or to, draw too much attention to the way he's trading and things like that. It's not about that. It's just about understanding some concepts that I know he's using and that have worked for him. And I thought, hey, you know what? There is that displacement candle here. And it gave me more confidence that this setup could work out, especially seeing this. But the part of the way he trades is that this displacement candle has to form. If it doesn't form, then the reversal in his perspective would be canceled or invalidated. I believe it's something like that. If I'm mistaken and he's listening to this down the road, or if someone talks to him and I'm mistaken about it, my apologies. But this is how I thought about it based off the context of what I know. And like I said, being a trader is not about just being a robot. Like, you're a human being. You're going to have trading IQ that gives you that intuition that can only be achieved if you're showing up to the charts every day and studying live price action. This is exactly what Matt talks about, right? I learned this from him a couple years ago, about just studying live price action and how important that is. And my goal is to just kind of keep a lot of the principles that he has taught me from a foundational perspective alive, because I use it, and try to really hammer those down for everyone here that wants to listen to the live stream, because it works. So when you show up to live price action, you're building your trading IQ, you're building your trading intuition, and then you can start to make intuitive decisions based off how you see the price move. Okay, so that was a big reason why I took that trade. The crazy thing about this trade was that it was, this was a heater, man. This thing went crazy. If you look at how many points this thing went, let's just say right here, almost 100, it went about 150 points from the call out. Now my exit, once again, was always going to be the daily EQ. Why? Because I don't know if price is going to reject from it. I don't know what will happen there. It's always a key level. It's a great place for me to aim to take profit. That's my draw on liquidity, if you will. If you're someone who's skimming profits, then this is a great place to take some profits off the table, maybe a big chunk, move your stop loss to break even, let the rest ride, and see if you can catch the top of the range, because sometimes that'll happen. And in this case, it did happen, right? That's not how I trade, though. The way I'm trading is I'm taking 1 hour trades. I have a daily goal that I try to hit financially, which is anywhere between $300 and $600. If I can achieve, that type of PL for the day on the trade, that is a win for me. Okay, I had mentioned this actually in the chat after I took that trade, that I caught my piece of the pie. I'm happy. I said we got to plan the trade the plan. Mentioned about Asia low, right? And then I also talked about how why I sold early, slightly early, because my daily goal was met. That's about controlling greed. Often we see people who trade, and we see this on social media, and they blast that's a 10-hour trade, that's a 6-hour trade. But the thing is that there's a whole lot more going to that story than you know about, than what they're sharing. And I'm not saying it's good or bad. I'm just saying there's more to the story. There's more than meets the eye. For me, I can't trade like that. I don't really like holding trades longer than 10 minutes. Even if anyone follows the trades I'm trading, which I'm sure you do, these trades last 4 minutes. Sometimes trades last a minute or less, right? Sometimes they last a little longer. Like today's trade lasted about 9 minutes. But keep in mind, it was taken off of the 30-second chart, and price was developing. All says his average is about 3 minutes. And I think, Ollis, you hold the record, right? What is it, 14 seconds or 30 seconds? What was it? You hold the record, man. 14 seconds. My God. Can you imagine being in a trade for 14 seconds and hitting TP? Insane. I'm just going back through my journal. Because I always keep track of how long my trades take to play out. So this month, most of my trades have been around the 4 to 5 minute mark, if not the 4 minute mark. I've got one in the 3 minute, and I have one that was 40 seconds. And that's literally just trading what I showed you, like how to do it that way. So the reason why these trades last a very short period of time is that you're playing off of a very key higher time frame level, hourly levels, 4-hour levels. And there's a lot of resting liquidity in those areas. And when you're trading on the 1 minute time frame and you're trading a reversal like a V shape, there's a lot of momentum on that reversal that I am trying to catch as a reversal IVG trader. So that's why it can be very, very fast. And if you also look at it, like how many points are you actually looking for, right? Now we've had a very volatile week. So the candlesticks have been pretty large, right? You got 1 minute candlesticks that are like 100 points deep. So how fast do you think it takes to move 60 points, 80 points? Today's trade for me was about 49 points, and it took 9 minutes. Yesterday was a 43-point trade that took 4 minutes to trade out. That 40-second trade that I took, you're going to laugh. That was an 80-point move in 40 seconds. And that just gives thought about how large those 1 minute candlesticks actually are, right? This is why they happen so fast. But in order to take trades that occur in that speed, you can't do it just based off of like what you feel like doing and not understanding the mechanics and the technicalities behind the setup. And this is what I've been trying to teach a lot of, is showing you the mechanics behind things, so that when price starts to do X, Y, and Z, you've already planned that trade. And that's kind of what I was showing earlier, was I already had planned out how I was going to trade today. I already knew that the higher time frame bias was short. I don't necessarily need that to trade because I'm trading on such a lower time frame, but my plan was still the same. I'm literally just looking for these levels. I'll show you. I share them every single morning. Here's London. I didn't even put the daily EQ because I thought it was too tight. Here's the H1. Here's Asia. Previous daily low. Here's the NWOG. You set alerts and you wait. I also showed you how the bands, the extremes of these bands, have good alignment with London high and Asia low. So this is 9:04 in the morning. Market hasn't even opened yet. Okay? And I've already planned out what I want to see happen. And we're going to talk about this on a mindset perspective because it really, really relates to how I set this up today. There's a good lesson to be learned there. So, and even here, I was thinking London high is going to get a hit. Psych, not happening. And this just goes to show you that just because I want price to go somewhere doesn't mean it's going to go there, right? So until price actually goes there, then I can do something. But if it doesn't go there, you have to wait, okay? Now, another thing to talk about is the daily narrative. And I'm just going to show it from here because I share so much. It's just easier and quicker. So this is the daily narrative. I just took a look at it at 11:39 in the morning. I thought, oh, what does that look like? Because we're front-running PDL here. Like, this is crazy. What does this look like to you guys? What does this look like to you guys? Put your answer in the chat. What does it look like? What type of model? AMD, okay. Accumulation, manipulation, distribution, sure. Anything else that stick out to you? Like as a whole in terms of the range? Anybody? Consolidation, okay. For me, I was looking at it and seeing search and destroy. Now granted, search and destroy usually has London sweeping the high and the low of Asia, but if you look at what price is actually doing, is London swept the high of Asia, went back to the mean. New York swept the low of Asia, went back to the mean. This is search and destroy, right? And I know if you're watching Matt's live streams, he talks about search and destroy a lot. I actually learned about search and destroy through him. I didn't even know what it was. But when you start to see this type of price action play out this way, when you understand that FOMC is later today, right? We already know the type of price action that we can expect on a day like today, right? Lots of chop, lots of fake outs. And when you already have that in your head that this is what is potentially going to happen, you got to take your profits off the table when you see them. You don't need to hit home runs. Yeah, definitely, Ash. Range trader dreams, 100%. But, with trading a range, those ranges for me are like the extremes of the range, which are those bands, the extremes of those bands, which are also like basically Asia low, right? And that's where I took that trade, Asia low, right here. If it had hit PDL, then so be it. It hits PDL. As a reversal trader, though, I'm looking for extremes of the range. I'm not looking to take trades in the middle of the range, except off that daily EQ if we get that clean bounce. But that's a completely different type of setup. And there's definitely some other protocol around that. But if you look at the IFEG reversal setup, just by itself, you're just waiting for these extremes to get swept, and then you're looking for the momentum on that reversal, right? Okay, so that's the daily narrative. Let me double check what else I wanted to talk about. So we talked about all that stuff. Does anyone have any questions or anything about anything I've talked about so far? If not, that's cool. No stress. Let's just take a quick peek at the chart again, just to see where we're at. This, leave, and Q. So it's 12:48. FOMC's around the corner. Price is starting to coil at the daily EQ. Surprise, surprise, right? Now, I hope to God no one is taking trades during the PM session, during FOMC. It's just not good probability. You know what I mean? Don't do it. Don't be that guy. Some people used to try to pass evals off of FOMC. I don't know if that's a good idea. I never really saw that work too well. And then, of course, we know the interview, right? The press conference. Now, I believe this is the first one with Warsh, if I'm not mistaken, who's the new guy. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out, because it is his, press that he's going to be at, or his presser, and he's going to have to answer questions. And his answers, or in the past, we've had Powell's answers basically moving the market. I don't know if it's going to be the same for Warsh, but that's okay, because I'm not going to be logged in to trade. Why? Because, exactly, no time. I got football to watch. I got Portugal to watch. You know what I'm saying? Exactly. And this is the key to trading, is this trade that was taken this morning was over a little after 10 in the morning. Once that happens, log off of your charts. Like, lock up your funded accounts. You're done. This is why we trade. We trade so that you can have that time freedom to, do the things that you only could dream about. And if you're able to do that and you're in that position, stop staring at the chart, right? Now, I'm here on the live stream. I also work off my desk anyway, so I'm here. But, not everybody's like me, right? There's a time, there will be a time down the road where I will be logging off 100%, and I won't come back until I need to come back. But right now, this is the way it is. So if you have that opportunity, take full advantage of it. Enjoy life, because the more you rest your eyes and relax your mindset from the stress of trading, the better off you're going to be in the long run. I learned this just by watching Ash. Honestly, he would log off after taking a trade, or even if he's like, I'm not seeing what I like, I'm not trading today, log off. I used to think, how the hell are you doing that? How are you able to just log off like that and not keep watching? There's a discipline and an art in that discipline that it can be taught or educated about, but at the end of the day, only you will be able to understand what that feels like when you do it. Because when you pull yourself away, then you're going to start to see why it's so important to do that. Yeah, look at this. Made a nursery today, priceless. And that's time freedom right there, right? I see stuff like that, it's inspiring to see. It's why we do what we do, and we get off. Today, I said, hey, my live stream's supposed to be at 1 o'clock today. And I'm like, oh shit, Portugal's playing. I'm going to live stream at 12. Right? I'm going to enjoy my time doing something that I like. Is it soccer or football? My God, I go back and forth, dude. I go back and forth. I want to say football all the time, but I live in North America, man. And even though I'm in Canada, everybody calls it soccer here. And it's so hard, because if I say football here, everyone thinks about the Buffalo Bills or the NFL. So quite a conundrum for me, especially when I travel outside of Canada and I'm visiting family and we're talking about, EPL or whatever. I have to really be conscious of not saying the word soccer around them, because I'm going to get punched in the arm. So anyways, that's the charts for today. We talked about a lot of stuff yesterday anyways, so if you missed the stream on that, go back and watch it. I'm starting to do my best to label everything as well. with like the things I'm talking about, somewhat in the order that I talked about them. So I usually just go back and I do that. And I'm just doing this to help you guys out. If there's things that you want to quickly, move to, or if you miss something, or you see something, you're like, oh, that's interesting. Like, I want to know more about this mindset thing, or I want to know more about, this classic sell day. What is that? Right? You can kind of, fast forward to that part of the stream, as opposed to just being a big block and you just have to sit through it for an hour and a half. It's not fair. And you might miss things. So I'm starting to do this a lot more. You can expect the same thing for today's stream as well. So let's end on mindset. Okay, so I was thinking about the power of preparation, chapter 5, with Best Loser Wins, because to me it stuck out like a sore thumb, because I literally was like, Asia low. If I'm going long, it's going to definitely be off Asia low. And I had prepared, what I was going to do. I set the plan, and I just waited. So just to kind of recap some of chapter 5 here, I'm just going to go to the net, though. I'll just use it from here. It'll just be easier than reading the notepad. So power preparation, winning before the trade. Think about that. Winning before the trade. How powerful is that? Winning isn't just getting a W on a trade, or seeing it go, 60 points in the direction you want, or seeing $600 or $500 or $300 in your PL column, right? Like, winning can also be following your routine, sticking to your system, right? Not succumbing to FOMO or panic, right? That can also be a huge win. And if you can do that even before you take a trade, that's a massive W, okay? So Hugard's trading day begins long before he places a trade. He's journaling, reviewing charts, studying the market structure, and mentally rehearsing scenarios. I talked about this yesterday. You got to visualize what you want to see. You have to obsess over that. Because when things don't work out exactly like that, and that voice in your head starts to kind of tell you to, like, you should front run that entry. You should front run that entry. All that preparation you did, the visualization, that obsession is going to combat that voice and tell it to shut the hell up. No matter what. So the preparation gives Hugard clarity and confidence when the market opens. And I often talk about why I show up to the market an hour, at latest an hour before the market opens, so that I can take my time, sip my coffee, observe the higher time frame, observe the news. If I have even more time, I can even look back and see what happened during London or Asia. Was there a setup there? Like, maybe I can study something quickly. But once again, that preparation gives me time to identify the levels, manage the bias, note the volatility and the conditions surrounding that volatility, and of course setting alerts. Visualize your ideal trade and let it come to you. This is everything I talk about in every stream, if you notice. I always talk about this. If you go back to the start where I walk you through how I set that trade up, it's all of this. This is so, so important. I can't stress this to you guys enough. So if you're not doing something remotely like this, I highly recommend for you to start to shift in that direction. When I first joined Ash's group, and I'm just going to quickly just say this, I had no idea about any of this stuff. I had no idea where the bar was set. There was him. There was a trader named Arrow who I got to know pretty well. And I learned a lot from both of these guys. And the one thing that they both had in common, which I didn't have, was they were always prepared to face the market. They were always disciplined and patient to wait for what they wanted to see. And it's not an easy thing to do. It takes time to develop, and it takes time to learn, and it takes time to build that foundation. And I said this earlier, you're only going to improve in that area by showing up for live price action. If you just continue to be a backtesting trader, In my opinion, I don't think it's going to help accelerate your learning curve or your growth or your PL. I think it's just going to give you confidence, but your confidence will get shattered in 5 seconds the second you take a couple of losses in a row. I've seen this happen to so many traders where they backtest and they're like, I got, a 70% win rate when in my backtesting, but when I showed up to trade with my live account or like my eval account or whatever to pass it, I blew it in 5 trades. Like, how did I get 5 losses in a row all of a sudden? Guess what? Confidence shattered. But if you are doing things from a different starting point, planning, preparing, journaling, reviewing, analyzing, studying, visualizing, and you're doing all of that before the market opens, and then you show up for the market and study the live price action, how much more powerful do you think that is? Honestly, how much more powerful do you think that is? But the truth of the matter is all of that takes effort. You have to work to this. Like, you have to retrain your subconscious and your conscious to understand what it's going to take. Because if it was easy, it's cliche to say it, but if it was easy, everybody would do it. And that's part of the problem, is everyone's looking for a shortcut when they jump here, and because they see their influencer making $20,000 copy trading 30 accounts, right? But no one understands the 7 years it took for that person to get to that level, or the 3 years it took for them to get to 30 accounts, having blown so many accounts or liquidations and things like that. So you have to put in that work. I try to help guide and influence this by setting up programs to help you help yourself. That's why we do the 20 trade challenge. It's open. There's no end on this. This can be like a lifelong thing to teach you how to do something step by step and make it easy and comfortable for you to do it. This is why I started it. Because when I first started trading, I only wish I had something like this to teach me, to learn about myself. Like, you are actually teaching yourself by just going through these motions, by checking in. I check in every morning. If you go back and just type like a search in this area and look, you'll see I check in every single day. And it doesn't mean I have to take a trade. I show up every single day and I do this. And I'm working a full-time job at the same time. And I'm able to do this, but I'm just saying that I have a lot on my plate, but I'm still showing up and putting in the work because I know what it's going to take for me to get to where I want to be. So plan the trade and then go back when the market opens and trade your plan. In my trading IQ section, I posted this one little area here. We're going to end on this, but if you have a problem or like an issue in how you are journaling, you don't know how to journal properly, you just need to ask yourself these 3 questions after every trade you take. Did you follow your setup rules? Did you manage your risk accordingly? And did you exit according to your plan? If you can say yes to all 3 of these, I guarantee you that's an A+ scenario trade that's set up, and most likely you got the win. Most likely you got the win. If any of these is a no, then you probably took a loss. Maybe you broke a rule, but you can go back and start to learn from that. And what will happen to your journal when you review at the end of the month is you'll start to see a pattern in those losses. So I'll leave you guys with that. Looks like Ash said, if you're any less locked in than what Kira just stated, you're doing yourself a disservice and not giving your business the respect it deserves, so your results will reflect that. Yeah, wonderfully said by the GOAT, man. So, if the GOAT's saying it, then you don't even need me to say it. Listen to what he's saying. So we'll end on that. I really appreciate all your time. It's 1 o'clock. I know the game's starting. So I really hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day. and I will see you guys tomorrow. I'll be back for live stream on Monday of next week, I believe. And yeah, it's been a fun week so far. Yeah, God bless you guys too, man. And yeah, thanks Viking Trades. Thanks Zanu. And Zanu, by the way, you started reading the book. Good. Yakut, what's up? Yeah, I mean, read that book. I mean, I just pick it up and randomly read different sections all the time. No problem, Tracy. You got it. Appreciate you being here. You were like the first one to log in. What book? We're talking about Best Loser Wins. If you just go back through any of the previous live streams, we've been doing a lot of conversation around Best Loser Wins and some of the chapters and some of the quotes and things like that. So I've been actually stocking up these quotes. I might create a section of just trading quotes. So I'm just kind of starting with Tom Hugard, but I'm going to start to shift eventually and move to, other traders that have books and things like that, right? Like we know Trading of the Zone is a very popular one. So other than that, guys, enjoy the game, enjoy the day. I'll see you next time. Thanks, Bobby. All right, guys, peace out.